My father really cherished his job at Ford's. He was one of few, clearly, blacks in Detroit who had a supervisory job in plants, and Ford's was a kind of premier plant as far as blacks were concerned.
At Ford, I don't know if anyone has told you, you had a little sort of brass badge about this big and this wide, and he used to wear it on their blue serge suits on Sunday, their lapel. And they were proud of the fact that they worked for Ford.
This badge was a badge of distinction. It might even get you a deaconship in a church. It might even get you a beautiful lady. It was a kind of pass-key to, the good things in life and the community. I mean, you were invited to this or that. You were almost a kind of a celebrity sense.
My mother did day work. She'd go like to your house today and his house tomorrow and his house the next day. And she did day work, washing and ironing. And then I got this job at Ford's. And I had never seen quite so much money. I thought I was wealthy. Bought myself a car. If you're going to work for Ford, I thought you ought to buy a Ford.
There were Chevys, Packards, and Mercedes, but half the cars in the world were Model T Fords. Simple, cheap, and sturdy. The most widely used vehicle in human history. And you could buy it on credit. Henry Ford lowered prices until the Model T cost less than a team of horses.
The idea that a farmer would ever own an automobile was beyond conception. Automobiles were for rich people.
I drove a car when I was 11 years old. My nephew drove a car when he was 8 years old. Prior to the automobile, there were people that lived their whole life that never traveled over 50 miles from home. Women particularly were isolated on farm homes.
It really changed their lifestyle. The girls learned to drive as well as the men, and they'd send them in for parts or to get a sickle sharpened or something. But of course, on a Sunday or a big outing, the man took the wheel.
In the booming 1920s, the mass production and mass marketing of automobiles changed America forever. Thousands of new bridges and paved highways for tourists, for truckers, and for the real estate boom in faraway Florida. With easy credit, Americans became a nation of gadget-hungry consumers, especially consumers of automobiles. More cars meant more steel mills, oil refineries, rubber and glass plants. Thousands of new jobs in Toledo, Pittsburgh, Los Angeles, and Detroit.
Yeah, I'm going to Detroit, put myself a job.
But the prosperity was not all it seemed.
Yeah, I'm going to Detroit, I'm going to get myself.
The legend of Henry Ford now drew far more workers than the Rouge could employ. Job seekers crowded the company parking lot on Miller Road.
Yeah, I'm going down and get me a job, working in Mr. Ford's place.
My father, my uncle, and myself went to the area where people were congregating. You felt that you were like a part of humanity on the move. So for 5 months, day and night, we waited for that employment office to open. I eventually did get a job. I wound up working in the foundry machine shop on the midnight shift. The long conversations that had taken place in that parking lot as you waited, night after night, day after day. all of a sudden came to a standstill. No talk, no walk. Don't leave your job without permission, not even for a drink of water, not even to go to the toilet. Not one step away from your operation.
At first, I worked in a glass plant. I made windshields. And windshields ain't funny to lift, you know. And sometimes we would make $500 and $600 a day.
And the difficulty with an assembly line job is that the job controls you rather than you controlling the job. In other jobs, you can sort of set your own pace. You work fast for a little while and then work moderately. Assembly line is one pace. There's not a thing you can do about it.
They would set the production, and you had to get it or you just didn't work.
When I was a little girl in grade school, when I was in second or third or fourth grade in grade school in Detroit, one of the trips that we always took was to the Rouge plant, to the assembly line in the Rouge plant. And we would walk on a catwalk, some kind of a catwalk, over the assembly line so that we looked down on the workers that were working, and they did the same thing over and over and over again. And to see it from on top, looking down, was a sort of a strange feeling, because in a way they looked more like automatons or marionettes than real people, and yet we knew they were people, but even their arm motions would be exactly the same over and over. It was like, it really was like a human machine, I think. That's what it seemed like to us.
All you heard was your own heart beating. You'd ask yourself, I waited 5 months on that goddamn parking lot across the street to wind up with this?